Anton Daniels did a YouTube short not too long ago that I just had to discuss. And I can tell you, this particular topic, I could talk about this for a long time. I got plenty of experience in this because Anton is the same age bracket as I am. He's also a Gen Xer, I'm quite sure, but I think he's probably a little bit younger than me by about maybe 5 years, or he might be close to my age than I think. But he's a Gen Xer, and I can tell you, I can speak exactly to the experience that he's talking about, and I'm gonna talk about it. But first, I want you guys to listen to the YouTube short that Mr. Daniel did. Mr. Daniels did, excuse me, about our fathers or the previous generation's failure. All right, and namely the boomers. And I know this isn't the first time you've probably heard this, or some of you is probably you maybe not have heard it in this context since it's me and not everybody else. But I'm going to go over this YouTube short. But first, I want you to hear what Mr. Daniels had to say. I'm not going to play the video, but I am going to let you hear the short. And so here we go. And pay good attention. Pay close attention.
Last year, they failed us. They lied to us. They told us, happy wife, happy life. Yeah. They're the most disappointing generation that I've ever seen in my entire life. They fumbled the country. They said, happy wife, happy life. They raised their daughters into being feminists. They lost control of their households. And then they gave us all of that same residual effects and all of those generational curses, and now we got to live with them, and we got to fix what it is that they're dealing with. That's why you see a lot of guys saying, I don't want to be what my father was. Or my father was a drunk, and that's why I don't drink anymore. Or my father wasn't there for me, and that's why it is that I treat my kids so well. We trying to fix all of the stuff that they did, and then the next generation is going to be the recipients of our greatness if we go about doing it the right way. But the last generation is the ones that failed us. They was the most free generation to do what they wanted to do. They had all of the opportunity. They had the jobs. They had the benefits. They had the unions. They had every single thing that you could possibly have to be able to level up and become great and leave us alone. OGs from yesteryear, they failed us. They lied to us. They told.
Okay. With that, I'm sure there's going to be some people that are going to be in their feelings. But, also, as they say, hit dogs holler. But I'm going to add to Mr. Daniels' YouTube short in context with what he's talking about here. Now, let's go over some of the things that Mr. Daniels said. Now, some of these things I may not agree as strongly with, but I can tell you more than likely I agree with them on some level. It's just, everybody's not going to have the exact same opinion, but I can tell you he's on point with this video. First thing that Mr. Daniels Anton said was, the yesteryear generation failed us. What's he talking about? The boomers, the baby boomers. He said that they lied to us. They told us happy wife, happy life. Now, let's talk about that first. There's a lot of truth to that, but I will say, though, I think there were some boomer men that could be sometimes one extreme or another. Some of them were complete simps. Well, actually, a lot of them were simps at the end of the day. When it came to a woman, some may have been more controlling or more aggressive in certain ways with how they wanted their woman to be on their program. But I think that was surely a boomer philosophy. Happy wife, happy life. Which is a simp mentality. It certainly doesn't help in the long run. All right? Mr. Daniels described the boomer generation as the most disappointing generation he's ever seen. Well, I can tell you that I can certainly concur with that statement because I can tell you I have two boomer parents. And I can tell you that I know that no one deserves to be on a pedestal. I know no one's perfect. But at the same time, let's just be honest. Because, to be honest, I think that the boomer generation has not gotten its proper critique as a whole over the years. You're hearing more about it now, but I think overall they've gotten away with a lot. And part of the reason is because they're the biggest generation. They had a lot of kids, and they were a big part of the voting bloc for a long time. Now they're a growing population, because so now they're getting smaller and smaller. But the problem was they were so big that they had a presence for a long time. So, boomers will stick up for other boomers because basically they want somebody to defend them in their fuck ups too. Let's just be real. But as far as the disappointment aspect of it, I definitely gotta agree with Mr. Daniels about that, because I can tell you there's a lot of disappointments with the boomers because they had a massive opportunity that a lot of the generations past them did not get. And you can even make the case the reason why is because of a lot of their selfishness, their greed, and just, too many of them wanted to party. They would squander their money. They were like a bunch of overgrown children. That want to son you and talk to you like you're a child for the rest of your life because they're older than you. They have the mentality. A lot of boomers have the mentality because they've lived longer than you that they're automatically due respect. Okay, they have boomers definitely have a level of entitlement. A lot of them when it comes to respect, they don't think they have to earn it. When younger people, they think that they're entitled to it just because they live longer than you. But it seems to be that they have amnesia about one particular term, which is there's no fool like an old fool. And let me tell you, there was a lot of old fools out here, a lot of them, okay, who have sat there and given terrible wisdom or their sense of wisdom to people that didn't work. I can say that for sure, even in my own experience with for example, particularly my mother, okay? Some advice that she had given me over the years that was just basically loser advice. And the thing about it is, it's like when you keep telling somebody to do something that don't work over and over again, at some point you got to concede that you're wrong. Maybe there's a different angle. Or they see the world only in a lens through their own eyes. They don't see other people. They don't see their children. And that's a big problem, because in other words, you end up being left out there having to decide without any consultation or really any guidance of how to deal with certain things, because truth be told, they can't tell you what to do in the real world, a lot of them, because they're still living back in whatever year that they were able to run and have their have their heyday. They still have that mentality, a lot of them. So you can't get advice from somebody who hasn't grown. That's just the reality. All right? And Mr. Daniels made the case to say that the boomers fumbled the country. Well, I think that that's pretty clear by looking at what we got right now. Who's the president of the United States right now? A pre-boomer. Basically a boomer on the cusp, but basically the way I see it is, if you were born a few years in the silent generation, you didn't really experience the silent generation. You're just a pre-boomer of sorts. You're still a boomer. Hell, you're about as developed of a boomer as you can get, basically, as far as what generation you grew up in. And this is what you got with somebody like Joe Biden. This is what you got with people like Donald Trump, right? Now, Donald Trump is, got his good points, got his bad points like everybody else. But these are boomers, all right? They had a lot of benefits. Look, Donald Trump had a lot of benefits, okay? His father, it's inheritance, and a lot of benefits he had from that, and a lot of opportunities that were in his generation he was able to take advantage of that are no longer weren't available for the Gen-Xers, certainly are not available, have not been available for the generations past us, millennials, Gen Zs, whatever. Okay? So, that's the thing. But a lot of them were very selfish and greedy, squandered opportunities, and the thing is, they had some opportunities that they could squander opportunities and go get another opportunity. They could have squandered some opportunities. This is the type of market that they had at their disposal. And the reality of it is, in the 1970s market boom, okay, many of them were able to benefit from that. So guess what? The market sucked now. Okay, we all know this, right? And look at what's happened now. That a lot of them has spent their time, you know, robbing the future from people, because it's like people that don't know when to step down, and a lot of them, sadly enough, see their own kids as their adversaries. Like they're jealous of their own children. A lot of them. You ever see, as a black man, right? Have you? Let me just ask this question. So to any black men that are either Gen Xers or maybe even millennials, right? In particular, when you see a boomer man, right? Don't allow them when they look at you, when they see a younger black man, they just look at you with disdain and they don't even know you. And it's like the idea that they're looking at you like they hate you. A lot of them look that way, and I know it's not just my imagination. They look at you like you're in their way or something, of something. Basically, that's what it looks like. And that's how a lot of them treated Gen Xers, okay? They would try to bully you around, and, you know, they want to step on your side and get out of the way, da-da-da. I mean, really, they really were. They like to talk down to you, whether they had the privilege to do that. I mean, really. And then look at the receipts. Most of them did not leave. Now, when Anton says that they fumbled the country, I say that that's pretty well documented right now. But we got some old people still in Congress right now doing nothing more than getting their bribes. That's all they're doing. That's all they're doing. I mean, come on, Maxine Waters, what has she done? She has one of the most impoverished, crime-ridden districts in the country. What has she done? Right? Now, some of these people are a little older, but still. They're still in Congress. I mean, come on. Dianne Feinstein was in the Senate. She's 90 years old. She was falling apart. She died in the Senate. Should have been forced to retire. Ruth Bader Ginsburg, the notorious RGB, knew she had cancer, but instead of her retiring, she stayed in there because she felt entitled to that position and died, which is one of the reasons why they were able to have the Sixth Conservative Court. She had a big part to do with it because she didn't retire. In order for the president, the Democrat president, then could have picked somebody. Instead, she decided to stay, and then she ended up dying during Trump's administration. So he got to fill her seat. So see the selfishness of these people. They don't know when to quit. Look at Mitch McConnell's another one who's falling apart, needs to get out of Congress. There's a whole bunch of them need to get out of there. Nancy Pelosi needs to go. She's 80 years old. Come on, what are these people still in Congress for? They're there continuing. I mean, they can't get enough. These boomers are just like Saturn, like the god Saturn, eating their own children. A lot of them are. A lot of them will deny they can their feelings all they want to, but you know what? A lot of them, you know what they'll do? They will try to turn it in on the people criticizing them, the children, and try to be like, oh, well, you know, that's the way it is. You know, they'll try to make you seem like you're just a crybaby and all that stuff. You know, you had to go out and get your own, all that stuff. Yeah. Yeah. So, and particularly in the black community, that was disgraceful. You know why? That's generational treason. Because a lot of other communities that are successful, they don't work that way. You know what they do? They are able to have enough responsibility, and a sense of responsibility, and a sense of familial duty that they say, hey, you know what? We shouldn't just sit here and burn through this money just because we made it, and say and tell people, well, we made it, so we have a right to burn it up if we want to. You don't get to say anything. No, they actually thought about their lineage. They actually thought about their legacy a lot, unlike a lot of you old Negroes. Let's just be real. Now, I know that's not all of you, but at the end of the day, unfortunately, it's too big of a number of you to make the ones that are doing the right thing shine through. I mean, you'd have to be talking about maybe like Judge Joe Brown or like Dr. Claude Anderson or something like that. But again, that's a few and far between number. It's not, it's hell. Dr. Claude Anderson had been trying to tell black folks about stuff for years, but guess what? Unfortunately for him, a lot of folks in his generation were too busy living it up in their own way. He was one of the anomalies of his generation, unfortunately, but a great man all the same. So look at the economy we got here, okay? Look at the economy we got. What do these people do? They want to splurge. They do it. No, raise the debt ceiling, raise the debt ceiling, raise the debt ceiling, right? So now you got a generation that's got a $34 trillion debt, right? And you still have not had I mean, come on. We're at this point now, right? As Gen Xers, the next president should be a Gen Xer at this point. Should have been one before if we get technical about it. But again, look at what we got going on. But you know, and then let's look at another thing too, real quick before I skip. Talking about following the economy. let's just talk about another aspect of these things too. A lot of these companies are looking right now at some of these models to cater to certain generations, like this whole ESG and DEI stuff. Some of this stuff is also geared the way they have some of these algorithms set to market. They're trying to get the money from. This is what they're estimating. I've read articles about this, and you probably have. Some of you have already heard about this. They are looking to get. They're saying that the boomer generation is going to leave a lump sum of money. I can't remember the exact number, but I want to say it's in the billions to the Gen Zs, right? Which are actually their grandchildren, truth be told, right? But if you notice, right, let's look at how generations have left wealth. It's usually been from the older generation to the younger generation, to that generation to the next generation. It skipped the Gen Xers. And it's not just, see, they don't talk about that. See, even with these formulas that they're looking, because they're looking to try to get that money the boomers are going to leave to the Gen Zs, right? They're looking to try to suck that money right out of Gen Zs from the time they get it. But you know what they never discuss? How did it go from instead of going to the kids, how did it go from the grandkids and skip past over the parents? That's what they don't talk about. Because then that will expose a very deficient mindset in that generation. Again, and I can tell you something. A lot of boomers don't like to be held accountable. They don't. Okay? When you bring these things up, there's always an excuse, a deflection, in most cases. They don't sit there and say, hey, you know what? Yeah, we screwed up. You know, it is what it is. You know, no, they have an excuse. It's always something. It's other people. Oh, you know, let me tell you something. I'll give you an example. Right now, there are people that were in Anton's Daniels short comment section that I can tell you who are likely boomers. And I'm going to tell you something. I'm going to go over a few of their comments in a little bit, but let's keep getting through this. All right? But yeah, so now we basically have a dollar that's worth practically nothing. We have a $34 trillion debt. We have wars all over the place, all kinds of stuff. Okay, so really, what have they done for the younger generation? Hell, they don't even want to get halfway decent education. A lot of these countries where they have these people that are out competing Americans, it's because they got free education. Because those countries, whether you want to call them communists, whatever, they're socialists, whatever you want to call them, they have a better education system than the United States does. They have, hell, Cuba has some of the best doctors in the world. That's a communist country. So there's something that's not going on right in this country. And you got to look at the older generation. They're the ones that have been in charge all this time. They're the ones that have been in charge. Okay? So they can't push that off and say, and then what they'll want to do is try to push it off and say, what's that way every generation? You know why? Because they don't want to be held accountable. Let's just be real. And this aspect, too, that Mr. Daniels brought up about how they raised their daughters to be feminists. Well, that's true, because I can tell you right now, I have a good friend of mine who is a woman I love to death. She's a boomer. And she even admitted that, you know, because she had her husband, she left her with 5 kids, and basically, you know, went and did what he wanted to do. Never really paid child support too much. And the child support system at that time, see, that's another thing about boomers. Boomers, the ones that said they were going to get the pack of cigarettes, and that whole joke about I'm going to get a pack of cigarettes, and they never came back, and they left the mother with the kids, and they went and lived their own life, and maybe made a new family somewhere else, right? They didn't pay child support to those other kids. All right, but guess what? The Gen X generation, oh, guess what? We got the overcorrection. Because guess what? The Gen X females who were indoctrinated to believe because of the fact that some of the boomer men did some of the boomer women so bad that they were bitter, and they told their daughters, don't depend on a man, this and that, da 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 da. And a lot of Gen Z women acted like as if what was done to their mothers was done to them. And they treated the Gen X men that way when we weren't even thinking anything like that. And a lot of them act like their shit didn't stink, they were better than men. A lot of them did that, okay? And a lot of them are the older women right now running around, nobody wants them. They're miserable, right? Because they still haven't, a lot of them still haven't learned their lesson. A lot of them still have not learned their lesson. They're still busy not wanting to look at the fact that, hey, maybe your attitude and some decisions you make is why you're in the position you're in. It's not all men. Maybe you need to look in the mirror. Maybe the nonsense you bought into this, thinking that you're a female and somehow you should be entitled to stuff. Maybe that didn't work too well for you. Did you think about that? Maybe that's your fault. But no, still got plenty of them still that living in denial, miserable, but still trying to fight to be, but they can't change. That's the problem. You raise your daughters to be feminists, and then what that does is that makes it so that helps hurt the family dynamic too, because you have uncooperative women, masculine active women, women that, let's be honest, that are sexually promiscuous. A lot of them were not faithful. They didn't talk about that too much, but a lot of these Gen X women, let's just be frank, operated like whores. They might have tried to do it behind the scenes and everything else, but I can tell you, guarantee you, you can talk to probably a lot of Gen X guys who were divorced, whose wives slept with half the town, some of their best friends and everything else. So let's just be real, okay? Let's just be real. Same reason when they came up with no fault divorce, they did that because remember at one time if you got divorced and you were found guilty or there was evidence of infidelity, you could end up getting nothing. Okay, or the other spouse can end up getting everything. See, they changed that to no fault divorce, and no matter what they say, they did that for women. They did that because of feminism. Because once they gave the sexual liberation thing a world and let these women do all that stuff, number one, you had a lot of illegitimate kids. What did they do? They got the child support system. The boomers started it, and then they finished it. They beat us in the head with us, the Gen Xers. Then you had a situation where the women in that generation would use the child support system to control the men, control the children, and get the benefits. That's what happened. That's continued on down so far from the 1960s. Okay, it had destroyed these families because you had uncooperative women who, in a lot of cases, didn't even truly want to be married. Let's just be real. And of course, the men lost control of the households because one, some of them didn't even have a backbone, or number two, they just left their families astray and went and did something else. Because those boomer men were not held to the consequence like we were after what they did. We paid for some of their sins. That's just the reality. Okay? Then you got, the residual effects, like you said, and generational curses because of stuff that they did, right? So we had to live with them, and we got to fix it because guess what? That's what happens. Ultimately, regardless of what's left, in order for you to improve the next generation, it's up to the next generation to fix it, whether it's their fault or not. We get that part of it. But for the boomers to feel like they can just say, well, that's how, yeah. Let me tell you something. You're full of crap because guess what? In most cases, you people, a lot of you boomers are living off of the wealth that your parents left you. And that's what they don't talk about. And then you look at it here. You got the wealth skipping from their kids to their grandkids. What does that say about the relationship they had with their kids and how they treat their kids in a lot of cases? What does that tell you? Okay, and to tell you the truth, the only reason why a lot of them are probably leaving their grandkids because at the end of the day, they're gonna the Gen X parents will probably give them some of that wealth anyway. Or they'll just directly just leave with them. That shows you what kind of relationship they have with their kids. And then just like, he said, a lot of folks saying they didn't want to be out like who their father was, or they didn't drink because their father was drunk, things like that. Want to treat their kids better because their father treated them like crap. I have friends of mine right now who own houses and everything else. The father had a house when he was up here when he lived when he lived in town. He moved down south and got married to another woman and sold the house. Didn't leave that house to his kids. Didn't leave them nothing. All right, didn't leave them nothing. All right. Then, just like he said, that if we fix the things that we need to fix, and this is one good point he made, that the next generation will be recipient of our greatness. Now, I want to specifically talk about that, and I'm going to tell you why. Because I can hear some boomers in my head right now saying, well, that's because of us that you were able to do that. See, that's one of the most disingenuous and most atrocious lies ever told. We have a group of people who want to take credit for anything you've done just because they spit you out, just because they did the bare minimum, which they're obligated to do, but for some reason they feel like they're doing you a favor by taking care of their kid. It's like the attitude is like, I could have left you in a dumpster, but I didn't. I actually took care of you. How absurd, man. That's really the extent of it. It's like some of them think they owe you something for actually raising you at all to be decent. Imagine that. Imagine that. If I thought that way about my child, I can only imagine treating my child like as if my child owes me their life because I bothered with them. I mean, I laid down and had sex with the mother and had a baby, but guess what? Be thankful I didn't just have you aborted, I guess, or dump you in a dumpster somewhere, right? Be thankful I bothered. Yeah, that's a message of love that you send to your kid. Then you wonder why a lot of your kids didn't respect you or like you. I don't know. I guess you just being talked to like basically you're not even a human being. But when you're a Gen-Xer, you learn how to turn your veins cold at times because you've had to endure certain types of treatment that, truth be told, you shouldn't have to as a child. Let's just be real. Say what they want to say. The truth is the truth. Their feelings are hurt because they don't want to be blamed for anything. They don't want to be held accountable for anything. Well, guess what? When we look back at history, the truth is going to be seen and told whether you like it or not. Because it's your legacy and you're responsible for it. That's the legacy that you leave. Be mad you did. Don't be mad because somebody's bringing it up. And there's another thing that's true that he said about the boomer generation. They did have a lot of opportunities. Let me tell you something. There was a lot of unskilled labor at that time. There was factory jobs you could get where you'd have good health benefits, good pay. Hell, they'd have a credit union, federal credit unions that you could go to get low interest loans. All kinds of stuff they had. Let me tell you something. There was a factory in the town I used to live in where at that time, talk about dental insurance? They had let me tell you something. There were people who had something called, it was Blue Cross Blue Shield, but it was Magnum Horizon. It's like $4 a tooth. $4 a tooth. So it would cost you to get a tooth replaced for only $4. $4 a tooth. That's unheard of, man. That is unheard of. You won't see those times come back, let me tell you. You won't. But they had those type of benefits. Okay? They were able to own houses. They were able to have nice cars. And things of that nature. Okay? With the pay they had. Okay? And the cost of living was way, way reasonable compared to, really. We're talking about at least where gas was, put it this way, when I was younger, I remember regular gas being 99 cents a gallon. Okay, so just imagine they probably seen that 50 cents. Okay, that's when you could have those muscle cars at that time, and then you pay. Please, it was sweet at that time in that regard. They were free to do so many things, and that's the truth. Okay, because a lot of new freedoms came about. Don't get me wrong, there was some racism still, but at the end of the day, there were still opportunities with the racism. Okay. My mother got a job, when she first came up to New Jersey with my dad. And she had a job at an insurance company that if she would have stayed there, she would have retired, maybe possibly making a 6-figure salary. Okay? She graduated in the Jim Crow South with 5 sisters and 1 brother, okay, in a big household where, matter of fact, 6 out of 7 of them, all right, because I have 6 aunts and 1 uncle, right, on my mother's side. And do you know that 6 out of 7 of them graduated from an actual historic HBCU down in Alabama? Okay, a privately funded one too, a real HBCU, not like these ones that are awash with a lot of white money that they don't necessarily have complete cultural control because they're influenced by certain money. You know, this school, the small school, is still going on to this day. Now, my mom graduated from this college. Matter of fact, it's Miles College, actually, is where it is. It's Miles College. It's an HBCU, which you probably haven't heard of. Okay. I even have a second cousin, one of my mother's first cousins, that also graduated from there. Okay. So think about that, right? My grandfather was able to send his kids to college because he wanted them all to get education, right? And they were also able to leave them some wealth, okay? Because I can tell you right now, he left them several houses. Matter of fact, yeah. So and I can tell you right now, I got a few cousins that do have some houses, but I'm tell you something. I have another one that ain't got nothing, right? A lot of them didn't have kids, even out of my mother's side of the family. The only ones that had kids was my mother and two of my aunts, which is a total of about 5 children, right? So a lot of them weren't even having kids, but they were living decent. I mean, like I said, there was still some racism, but at the end of the day, they still had more opportunities. If they had worked together, if they had created some wealth, and they would have worked together, and they would have been interested in creating a black economic base, they could have left a legacy, and the black community could have progressed. But they really stunted the growth of the black community. What they did in that generation. Sadly enough, what's done is done. Okay, and that's the whole thing. You have children. You're supposed to be trying to create a legacy. That's the goal, right? That's supposed to be the goal. But a lot of them weren't concerned about that. A lot of them want to be children. Wanted to be children for eternity. Okay, and that's the delusional mindset a lot of them had, and that's the reason why a lot of them be jealous of their own children. And that's the point I'm getting at about some of these old boomers that you see. When they see a younger man, they're like, they got a old stiff, stank look at them, like they smelling something a lot of times. And why? I don't even know you. Just the jealousy of your own children. How weak, how pathetic that is. And let's be honest, one of the biggest problems of the boomer generation is that there were too many of them that were looking for a pat on the head from the dominant society. There was too many of them looking for white validation. And I can tell you, I know some people listening and say, oh, how racist that sounds. Well, guess what? The truth ain't racist. Because a lot of them were that way. They were some of them were the biggest white ass kissing people you'd ever want to meet. But you think that Joe Biden can go to these black churches and basically they'll sit there and dance with them and act like everything's all good because that's what they did when they were younger. Same thing, basically. That's why he can go there and take pictures with them and act like he gives a damn about black folks. Because of that generation. Okay? That's still, above ground. So, you know what? I think that's a valid point. The point is not just to sit there and let's just say this too. I think that when Anton was talking about this, the point was not to just beat up on the boomer generation. The point was to make the point of how we got to where we are now. But unfortunately, a lot of them don't want to hear that because it looks bad on them. Well, you know what? We can't help. We cannot help what your generation chose to do. Okay? But we can't lie about it. Because as they say, you can't fix a problem if you refuse to acknowledge it exists. You can't fix it. See, see, that's the thing too about them. Let me tell you something. Let me just not forget something else too. A lot of them were some of the most egotistical, selfish egotism. That's another big problem with them. A lot of them were so selfish. Like, they never wanted, the idea is that your children are supposed to do better than you. Let me tell you, a lot of them didn't really like the idea. They might have gave lip service to it, A lot of them will make smart remarks and snide remarks to their kids. Like, believe me, I know, okay? My mother was notorious for that type of stuff, all right? Taking shots at their own kids. Being psychological and emotional bullies, okay? So no, I'm not going to sit there and let nobody sit there and say, okay, here, matter of fact, let me not get too far off track here. I want to go over some of the comments in the comment section of Anton's YouTube short. You have people in here trying to make excuses, right? Now, some of them were actually honest. Amazing enough, the boomers that commented. One of the first ones, a guy said, I'm 63 years old, just turned a day. This young man is spitting facts. Young man, please don't be like us. Be better than us. Now, this is a boomer here. That's an honest boomer. But unfortunately, that is not the norm, and it's not the majority. Not even close. Here's an example. This comment, this person said here, man, every generation has said everything, buddy, has said. The problem in our community is much more complex than his perception. See, this is somebody trying to deflect here. This is somebody here is trying to say that basically that, oh, every generation says that about last generation. And then he's trying to deflect into saying that, well, it's more complex than his perception. Oh, yeah? But yet, you don't get no real explanation. This is just somebody wanting to basically, this is like a hit dogs holler kind of comment, right? But then here's, of course, the ones that are co-signing it. And somebody going to go as far as to say, facts. Your time is your time. You're supposed to pick up the baton and run with it. You can't blame how things are on your forefathers. They got us here at this point. See, I'm going to tell you why that is a cop-out. That is a load of bullshit. I'm going to tell you why that's a load of bullshit right there. It's because, number one, you're supposed to pick up the baton. Half of these Negroes didn't even leave a baton. They left like a little handle on the ground after they got done screwing up stuff. So they didn't even leave a baton. That's a joke. And then saying that they got us here this far. Like, now, again, this is where people want to take false credit. Because when Anton Daniels was saying that if we fix the problems that from the past, our young generation will be the recipients of our greatness, right? But I can guarantee you there's going to be some boomers that are going to say, see, that's what's funny. They don't want any to blame, but I bet you the boomers will say, well, just like this one want to say, they got us this far. That's what some of these Negroes will say, one of these old Negroes will say. Well, the only reason why you were able to do it is because we made sure you stayed alive. A lot of the information that you got, you didn't get from them. Matter of fact, a lot of cases, you got wrong information from them. I can say that about my own parents. Now, again, I love my parents. Doesn't change the fact that they were wrong about certain things. And you know what? No one deserves to be on a pedestal. There's two things you learn from your parents, first of all. And this is what we got to get established, people. You learn what to do, but you also learn what not to do. But we seem to have a problem with the what not do problem part of it when we know, if we want to be honest, we know that our parents have made mistakes. We've seen the consequences of those mistakes they made. Well, because some of us want to put our parents on a pedestal, then we want to ignore the negative part. Well, guess what? That's not going to fix the problem in the next generation when you raise your kids by you ignoring that problem from your parents. Because guess what? If you ignore it in them, you'll end up ignoring it yourself. That's ultimately usually what happens. You just recycle and continue that same behavior. And if the idea is for us to actually get better, then that means we got to get honest with ourselves. And we also got to be honest about the things around us as well, including our own parents and the generations, and what their contributions were and what their downfalls were. Boomers could have contributed. See, the disappointing part is that the boomers could have contributed so much more. But honestly, they didn't take things seriously. Most of them did not take things seriously. And now, let's be honest too. A lot of them sucked the blood out of their own children. They would steal their own kids' inheritance. Some of them, a whole lot of things. I can tell you. Look at some of these child superstars, or actors, or gymnasts, stuff like that. They had to be emancipated from their parents because their parents were sucking them dry. A lot of those were boomers doing that. So this idea that, well, when they got us this far, some of the kids, they got that far because of their resilience, not because their parents helped them. Okay, there's a lot of these childhood scars who more parents allowed their kids to be molested for money. Okay, I mean, come on, we got this one girl, I think her Dominique Mosianu, was getting ripped off by her parents. She ended up becoming an emancipated juvenile. Now look at Corey Feldman. He had to, go to court, take his parents to court. Then look at Lindsay Lohan, Michael Lohan, like how he was trying to get control of her money, right? Some of these boomers, let's just be real, ain't shit. And there's a lot of people, not just boomers, but I'm just saying, it's like when it comes to them, there's always this conversation to skip over them. Don't blame them for anything. Well, no. What we should do is hold them accountable. We're past the point of blame because the fact of the matter is blaming someone's not going to fix the problem. But calling out behavior will get you to know your past, so you won't make the same mistake in the present. And hopefully you'll learn that lesson. You can teach that lesson to the future generation. That's the point. So you can't try to, blow past the truth because a certain group of people feel some kind of way. Your feelings don't have anything to do with getting better or transcending those problems. Okay? Let me tell you something. There's a lot of Gen-Xers that were successful in spite of their parents. Let's just be honest. In spite of them, not because of them. So, I just wanted to lay that little bit of defense on Mr. Daniels, because good on him about this. And I know this is from a long video, but there definitely was a lot to be said about this video. And yes, we have to look at all the generations for the good points and bad points. But because the boomers feel that their generation is being critiqued in a worse way than others, doesn't mean it's not true. But again, we can go back to maybe the greatest generation or silent generation, and the problem might be is that a lot of them were too soft on these kids. Maybe they were more spoiled than what they want to admit. Because to be honest with you, a lot of boomers do act like spoiled brats. So it just makes you think, okay, because look, you have a lot of Gen Xers that will talk highly about their grandparents. Higher about the grandparents than their own parents. So that should tell you something right there. So anyway, I think I made this video a little longer than I wanted to, but you know what? I think this was something that had to be said. It's something that had to be addressed. And at the end of the day, if we want to improve, we can't just let the previous generations get off the hook and say, well, you know what? It's not their fault. No, we got where they left it. That's the whole point. When you become an adult and you have children, your obligation, your duty is to leave something for the future generations, if not necessarily for your direct kids, if you have for the society. But again, when you're avarice and your narcissism is much more important than taking care of your own kids, then yeah, you're gonna have problems. And that's going to leave a mark. Okay? That's going to be your mark. You cannot want people to talk about it, but guess what? You can't solve a problem by trying to pretend there's value where there isn't, or pretend there's no value where there is. You're never going to get the answer to the problem that way. You have to be real. And that means you have to be indiscriminate. That means you have to be objective. That means we got to look at the boomer generation objectively. Yes, of course, some of us have our own resentments maybe to the boomers, but let's just be honest. A lot of these red pill content, for example, are coming from Gen Xers. Some boomers, but mostly Gen Xers. Because the reality is we're a generation that really didn't get much from our dads about as far as how to deal with women. Matter of fact, just like Anton said, we were taught, a lot of us were taught to be simps and the happy wife situation, and it couldn't be further thing from the truth. Because you can't some of these people you just can't satisfy. So you can't be about you constantly being on the hook for every day of their happiness, because they got to be responsible for their own happiness. And that's where, this generation of women, they didn't have any sense of duty, that, any sense of commitment, really. They didn't. And unfortunately, again, a lot of boom women taught them that nonsense, and some of them still trying to teach that crap. And then what a lot of you women got to look at is, okay, that old lady that's telling you that, go look at her life. Is she single? Is she still married? Did her husband die early? So, don't just go by what somebody says because they live a long time. See what receipts they got for everything they're saying. And if they don't have any receipts, it's probably not a good idea to listen to everything they say. Because if they can talk but can't walk the walk, why would you listen to them just because they live longer than you? Because if somebody can tell you how to make $1 million, they're going to make it. They're not going to make 10,000 and then tell you how to make $1 million. They shouldn't be talking to you at all and giving you any advice unless they can actually show you what they've done. And if they can't, they don't let them tell you about what they did. Let them show you what they did and what they benefited and what they were able to leave. Then you should listen to them. That's just my opinion, but I think overall, that's the right way to go about it. And I think most people would agree.